Welcome everyone to the 2021 Okanagan Basin Water Board annual meeting, Waves of Change, on Friday, September the 10th, 2021 at 10:30. And we are doing this online. So I would just like to welcome all of the Okanagan Basin Water Board members, our staff, Water Stewardship Council members, who I recognize some of the names that are on here, and experts in water, and also some of the media are on here. So welcome to you all, and thank you for joining. This has been a challenging year, convening online and over the phone, and yet we all participated and continue to do the important work of understanding and protecting our valley waters. The Okanagan Basin Water Board has been successful for over 50 years, using a persistent, steady approach to support water management projects. And I just want to point out that in forming some of these thoughts that I had, I looked back at the annual reports, the few of them that I have here in my house, and I was particularly interested in the looking forward sections of the annual report, and I thought they were very helpful in thinking, what are we planning to do and what have we done, and it's pretty amazing. So our themes, several of them over the years: one valley, one water, water connects us, and waves of change this year, which is pretty obvious, isn't it? We've certainly gone through that. Fortunately, we were able to celebrate our 50th anniversary last year on October the 1st, 2020, at a park in Penticton, or in Kelowna, and I said last year we need to celebrate with a cake, and in fact we did. We celebrated with lunch and cupcakes. So that was a kind of a milestone in our history. So 2020 and 2021, not only has the board had to deal with floods, droughts, wildfires, extreme heat, climate change concerns, protecting fish, learning about snow pillows, and we have done it all while making water work wisely, which is what we're all here for. So I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting, and thank you for joining us. And I will ask Chief Derrickson if he would like to give an Okanagan Nation welcome.
Thanks, Sue. If I would like to give one, what if I decide I don't want to?
No, you do. You have to.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is my first public meeting of the board, and I'm new to the board here, not even been here, I don't think, quite a year yet. And it has been a great learning experience for me. And I'm actually down in Osoyoos right now. Yesterday was my 15-year anniversary, and this is what I can see right now. Sue, does that look familiar to you?
Absolutely. I'm just at the southern end of the lake looking at the same view.
It's almost as beautiful as the central Okanagan. But that's what I get to see and look at. And it's interesting, I was just outside, went down to the vehicle, and there were some Indigenous people walking out. And there's something we do when we see each other. Two Indigenous people walk by, they'll look each other up and down. Yeah, you look Native. Yeah, I think that's a Native. And then we'll do this. Do a little head nod. Now, I know all you non-Indigenous people, can I say white people? Probably don't do that, because your head would get sore seeing so many of your people. You'd look like a bobblehead, or like you're trying to dance powwow. But it's interesting how we acknowledge each other or how we see each other or what we see. And when two Indigenous people see each other, they acknowledge that. And in today's world, I think we're starting to see things differently. We are in the midst of change. And sometimes there are things that we see in society that we'd rather just not see, just like we have in our homes. I'm sure that picture behind Sue is covering up a hole in the wall that she'd rather not see, but it's easier to hang the picture, make it pretty, than it is to cover the hole. And Cindy's just behind in front of a whole swath of holes and walls that she's just got a bunch of pictures covering. Easier to hang the picture. It's what we do. It's simpler to look at the beauty and to, as best we can, not acknowledge the things we just would rather not. But more recently in society, specifically in Canadian society, we have seen things come to light. We remember just a couple months back, the discovery of 215 kids, unmarked graves in Kamloops that never made it home. And that's a remnant of Canadian society that is not part of history, but is part of our present day reality as Indigenous people and as Canadians. Parts of society we'd rather not see. And now, as Canadians, we can start to talk about these things. And why is this important to water? Well, because as Indigenous people for many years, we've not been seen, or would rather not be seen by Canadian society, or some, depending on political ideology, personal belief. You might think Indigenous peoples were remnants of the past, but in very fact, we are here in the Okanagan. We're called the Seal people. We have 7 communities that make up the Okanagan Nation, and we hold one of the seats here at the Okanagan Basin Water Board, which I missed a chief executive committee meeting, and they appointed me to this, not because I have a vast knowledge of water, but it's been, as I said, a great learning experience. And I want to commend the Okanagan Basin Water Board for being willing to see our people. You also note in the strategic plan that working with the Okanagan Nation and working with the communities in the nation and collaborating with us on issues around water is a part of the Okanagan Basin Water Board strategic plan. Staff have taken training, I think throughout in Alberta, on how to work with Indigenous communities. Our knowledge systems are being imported in to work alongside with Western-based science approaches to water. And something I'm excited to start to see more of around this table and the work the Water Basin does, Okanagan Basin Water Board does, and all municipalities do, is the inclusion of Insilption language. When we talk about water, and what I'm looking at now, I mean, we use English as a very poor language. No offense to all you English-speaking people, myself included, but it's not great at relating what's important to us. In Silpchen, the word for water, and I'm going to butcher this. I'm learning the language. I actually just enrolled in language classes this week, first week of language class for me, is siok. And the elders tell us that makes up, there's 2 sounds in there. The first sound, siok, is what you do when you drink. Siok, you're taking a sip. Or we would cup our hands and drink water from the streams or the lakes. The other part of the word, I'm butchering that again, is the sound that animals make when they lap up the water. So our word for water, it creates a picture in your head of both humans and animals drinking from the same source, bringing the human world and the animal world together as one, recognizing that water is not just important to us, but it's important to all of us. And our elders, and you'll often hear our people refer to water as our relative, not as a resource to be managed, but as something that is alive in itself and something that is related to us. And we treat things that are relatives, maybe the ones you like, better than ones that are not relative or related to us. When you have relatives, you always have a place to go to. You always have a home. And so I think as a society and as a community within the Okanagan Basin Water Board areas, we should start thinking and seeing water differently, not as a resource, but as a relative, something that brings us all together. And so it is an absolute honor to provide opening remarks to you this morning on behalf of the Okanagan people, the Seal people. And we are very much looking forward to working more collaboratively with each and every one of your communities, ministries that are online too. I see Ray Crampton's there. Great relationship with the interior region of Flynn Row here, and Ray, the work that's being done there. But another example of the inclusion and the willingness to see the Seal people knowledge as being valuable and having contribution to make to how we see ourselves, understand our relationship to the natural world, and looking after this beautiful place we have that we all call home. So thank you for joining us here again, and thank you, Sue, for allowing me down in Asuyas. Haven't kicked me out yet, and allowing me to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Director Derrickson. He wears many hats, we offer Canada's warmest welcome. So we welcome all of you down into Asuyas. So we always do that. So thank you. I will now turn it over the presentation of the 2021 annual report, Waves of Change, to our Executive Director, Dr. Anna Warwick Sears.
All right, thank you. I'll just share my screen here and start my presentation. If everything works according to plan. There we go. There we go. Okay. Every year we have to struggle a little bit with coming up with a appropriate theme, and there was some debate around the staff about whether Waves of Change was a good theme for this last year, because on one hand there were waves of change for sure, but there is also some reminder of the waves of the pandemic. So yeah, it was this was certainly the most unusual year that I have lived through, and it was an unusual year to provide leadership to an organization. I'm sure it was an unusual year for everyone who was, well, it's a global pandemic, but I know I speak for the rest of the staff that it was a challenging year, but I was really impressed with how everyone came together and just had this great attitude, like, we're going to get through this and we're going to continue to do our work, and we're not going to be overly slowed down or impeded by all this strangeness of what it's like to suddenly pivot to working from home, change all of the way that we normally meet with people, and you know, get our business done. So I think I wanted to start with this slide, because this was our meeting that Chair McCortoff referred to, our 50th anniversary celebration last year in October of 2020. And this is kind of how the whole year felt, in that we felt like we were part of a very strong community, a very supportive community. We may have had to be distant from one another. Being 6 feet apart was as close as we ever got, but just really wonderfully supported by the broader community, and really able to continue to do the work that requires so much collaboration and participation from so many different people. And before I talk more about kind of the activities of the board and things that we did, I wanted to spend a moment to remember a couple of people who were very important to the board who are now gone. The first is Toby Pike, who was a director at the OBWB for 12 years. He started at the board in 2006 with the beginning of the water management program. His daughter sent me this photo. She said it was from his early days at Southeast Kelowna Irrigation District. And I have to say, Toby was a terrific board director. He was extremely intelligent, very thoughtful, always there with a very measured, considered opinion, very participatory in all these different committees. Our first water supply and demand project work. Anytime when you had to have an expert committee, he was always willing to attend, came to the Water Stewardship Council meetings, just a terrific person. He passed away in July this year, and I know is missed by a lot of people, but he certainly contributed a tremendous amount to the water board. The second person may not be as familiar to the people on this call, but that is Dr. Kim Hyatt, who actually lived in Nanaimo, but he was one of the most influential government scientists to be part of the big salmon restoration project here in the Okanagan. And I just wanted to read a bit of an email that was that Kim actually wrote to, I believe it's to Don Machin, about a year ago, talking about his work in the Okanagan. And she shared it with a group of people who had all worked with Kim and were sharing their memories of him. So this is Kim in his own words. He says, "The photos are lovely, and although they made me a little envious, they also helped connect me at a distance to the water and salmon that I have committed much of my professional life to. I remember the first Okanagan workshop in 1994, I think, in which the elders and Bill Green extended an invitation for me to attend with the intent of securing our help to restore salmon to their former abundance in the Okanagan. I was touched by the level of passion and commitment, as well as by the openness of the elders and ONA in general to working with those who might be able to contribute to what seemed to be a very challenging task. Many colleagues, both within DFO and external to it, thought these initiatives would be unlikely to succeed, and with the exception of the folks at Douglas County, were very hesitant to invest time or money in such a marginal enterprise. Because the folks at Douglas County had tried and failed to produce additional sockeye from their activities in the US, we were able to make the case that the main opportunities for potential success were in Canada. Subsequently, Bob Clubb and Rick Kling convinced the Public Utility Board that they should invest initially in the project. The chapter that Margot and I wrote in 2019 provides one perspective on how this eventually fit into an overall salmon restoration strategy. I won't babble on more about this because my current intent is meant to convey how rewarding this work has been, how greatly I have valued the working relationships and friendships we have developed over the past 25 years. There have been bumps in the road during our journey together to bring back the salmon, but it has been a great honor and a pleasure on my part to have been involved in this with the ONA and others from the starting gate to where we are now. I couldn't bring myself to say start to finish because I don't believe the full measure of what we may do together is yet complete. That said, I still stand in amazement at the lessons the salmon have taught us about the resilience of the natural world when it is given half a chance to recover." So very, very sweet, brings tears to my eyes just reading that. And I think with both of these guys, it's, you know, we stand on the shoulders of giants, all the people who have given their careers to really making the Okanagan a better place and protecting and restoring the waters. So I want to give my heartfelt thanks to both Kim and to Toby for that. So now on to our normal presentation. For those of you who are guests here, I always like to share a slide of the current board of directors. The water board has 9 directors who are appointed from the 3 regional districts. Our chair, Sue McCourthoff here, and our vice chair is Cindy Fortin, who is also, they're respectively the mayors of Osoyoos and Peachland. And then we have, I won't go into everyone's names, but they're all here on the call. We also have 3 directors from external to local government. We have Chief Derrickson, who just spoke. We have Bob Carrasco with the Water Supply Association of BC. And last year, this current fiscal year is over, we had Dr. Denise Nielsen. So we're really appreciate the commitment of the board of directors to the organization and make it possible for everything that we're doing. On the right-hand side there, you see the boundaries of the Okanagan watershed in Canada. So this is the area in which we do all of our work. These are the staff as of the fiscal year that ended March 31st, 2021. We, on the top row, are all the folks who work in the office. James, Corrine, Carolina, Kelly, and Nelson. And on the bottom row, we have the Milfoil staff. We have had some changeovers in the staff, but Pat Field on the lower left has been with the board for something like 25 years, very long-term staff member. We have Dave in the middle there, and then Morgan. And Morgan has since left the organization. And we have some new staff who I guess you'll have to wait until next annual meeting to get introduced to him. And then Karen in the lower right came in as a temporary summer staff 2 years ago, and we've kept her on as a casual, and she helps a lot with our graphic design of different things that we're doing. Then I want to just highlight the Water Stewardship Council. Many of the Water Stewardship Council members are on this call, but I wanted to have them here as along with the introduction of the board and the staff, because I think that the Water Stewardship Council is an integral part of the constellation, if you will, that forms the water board. So back in 1968, 69, 70, when the water board was first being designed and organized, they intended to create this external, they were called the liaison committee, this external body of all these different experts that could feed information into the board and take questions from the board and work out multi-stakeholder, multi-sector ways of understanding them. So whether you are concerned about conflicts between fish and agriculture, conflicts between urban and rural areas, how do you understand the relationship with wildlife, natural restoration of areas. These are all kind of topics that are discussed in this mixture of people that can really work through conflicts before they become intense and come up with solutions that really resolve those conflicts ahead of time. So the council was reestablished after initially being founded in like 1970 with the formation of the board. It was lost in the depths of time. Sometime in the 70s, they stopped holding the liaison committee meetings, and then it was re-established in 2006 and has been a very strong and important part of the board since then. So I just want to reinforce the idea that the water board, if you think of the water board as an organization, it is the board itself, the staff, and the council. So last year we had our 50th anniversary. So this year marks 51 years working on 3 different separate programs. The board was established in order to take on these issues that were valley-wide in scope and that couldn't really be addressed by any one jurisdiction. They were local in nature, and so it didn't really make sense for the province to be taking over, but it really needed to be approached as a partnership of all of the Okanagan communities that are part of this watershed. So that was the intent back to the very early discussions and founding of the board, and that is how the board has continued. So I call it a local watershed agency. But if you look at the way that the board is structured, the board does not have authority. It cannot tell any communities to do anything. It cannot force regulations. It is a partnership where people work together because they want to work together. And the actual structure of our letters patent is we function more like a way to share resources than anything else. Like we are a way to pool money, to pool expertise, to pool resources, and then to address whatever topics are coming up. So that's kind of highlighted by my next slide, where a lot of the things that we do, even though we're focused on water and focused on water science, a lot of that is made possible because we're structured for these financial partnerships. And that comes up in, it's very evident from our audited financials, which are in the annual report. But I always like to highlight this in our annual meeting presentations. So the way we're structured is to pool this valley-wide funding. We also have this capacity to receive grants from senior governments. This last fiscal year, we received over $265,000 in grants. It was actually quite a bit less than the previous 2 fiscal years, where we had somewhere between $1 and $2 million in grants. But the grants that we received, the main thing that determines how much grants we get is how many funding programs there are, because we are very, very, very successful. Probably in 80 to 90% of our applications are successful, and so the amount of income that we get really depends on what programs are out there. So this is more like what we were receiving back in right around the time of the Great Recession, when there weren't very many programs. But the cool thing about slow years like this, where we don't have a whole bunch of big projects that we're working through, is that we get to do a lot of project development, a lot of thinking, a lot of working together, and beginning to work on applications that we will be able to submit as soon as those programs are up and running. And that is in fact what we did do. The applications that we wrote have triggered over $1 million worth of grants that we are just receiving now in this fiscal year. So in addition to the grants that we get from senior government, we also are providing grants to the local partners. So we have our water conservation and quality improvement grants for $350,000 a year. This is from funds that we get from that are internal from the property tax base. These go out to the different communities to do work that improves water in the valley, mostly to small organizations and local governments. We also have a larger program to improve sewage treatment infrastructure. So that's the almost $1.3 million in grants went out to do work on improving sewage treatment, extending community sewer, doing all these things that have been very, very influential to reduce the amount of nutrient pollution going into our lake system. Another thing that we do is to assist local partners to get external funding. So we make ourselves available to all of our partners, local government, local organizations, to help them apply for other funding. So whether it's writing letters, reviewing grant applications, identifying new sources of funding, the work that we do with Environmental Funders Canada, being involved in these other funding organizations. There's the BC Water Funders Collaborative and all these. We stay in touch with other funding agencies. And on one hand, that helps us keep up to speed on what funds are out there and available. On the other hand, it also helps us raise the profile of Okanagan water issues and let people know what is going on in the Okanagan for the funding agencies and what they might consider to be priorities. And then finally, we create this platform for joint initiatives. If people want to have help pooling funding that they have, if they want to have help convening, working together, then we make it easy for them to do that. So it is unusual to have a watershed organization where your structure is primarily around sharing resources, but that's actually what works really effectively for us. I put in this slide with financial highlights. This is basically the highlights of what is in our annual report, which is, we're going to be sharing a link to that. Maybe Corrine can put a link to that in the chat, and we can follow up with a link in the email. It is, this is the formal unveiling of the annual report, and you can also contact us if you would like to request a hard copy. So the basic revenue that we get is levies from regional districts. This is from the property tax space, and it is the way that it's structured is that everyone in the entire valley contributes at the same rate, as if there were no political boundaries. There's no local government jurisdictions. It's just everyone is a citizen of the Okanagan Basin, if you will. Then you see also the local government grants that we were discussing. We get a little bit of interest and a little bit of other income, and that's our revenue sources. And then you can see the relative amounts that go out in expenses to the 3 different programs. The Sewage Infrastructure Grants Program is our oldest program, one of the oldest from back in the 70s. It was established because there was so much nutrient pollution going into the lakes. And this a lovely photo of the Kelowna sewage treatment plant. I ride my bike up in the lower left on that street every day to work. And this is the kind of work that the Water Board has contributed to, so that all communities, the goal is to have all communities in the Okanagan have the best possible sewage treatment infrastructure, so that it ends up with the best possible water out in the environment. Our Eurasian Water Milfoil Control Program is our second oldest program. We took it over in the 1980s from the provincial government, but milfoil was certainly an issue from before that in the 1970s when the provincial government was trying to manage it. It had this explosive growth. It came in, was first found in the early 1970s and then spread rapidly through the entire lake system. This is a picture of one of our summer operators, Luke, who is standing by one of the harvesters. And there's a beautiful pile of weeds there that will be trucked off to a farm. We get rid of all of our aquatic weeds we dump it off to different willing farmers who like to use it in their compost. Very high in nitrogen. Another way of removing nutrients from the lake. but it's an ongoing program, keeping the beaches clear. There is some certain issues that we are having to deal with, having to do with permitting and the long-term maintenance of our program. There are some endangered freshwater mussels in the lake, and we're working with the ministries to better understand what the impact of the milfoil is, the negative impacts of the milfoil versus the impacts of removing the milfoil. And this is a long-term process. So our third program was established in 2006 to help with a whole array of the different kinds of water management programs that can come up. Whether you're looking at water quality, water supply, all the different places where water is used in the valley, all the different ways in which water needs to be protected, restoration, all of these different things that touch on water fall under the umbrella of the water management program. And the program was really started in response to this. This is the amount of inflow to Okanagan Lake over this period of record from 1921 to 2020. And we get it updated. We get a new bar every year on the graph from the River Forecast Center. It is really, it's kind of mind-boggling how much fluctuation there is in the actual amount of supply. And I think you can see my cursor here. Unusually, like here's 2017 right here. This was a terrible flood year, probably the worst flood year, certainly the worst flood year within this history of record, but it was not the highest water year by any stretch. So here is 2020 had actually more inflows than 2017, and 2020 was not considered a flood year. So a lot of the way that we experience the fluctuations in water supply have to do with how we manage it, both at the, from the household level to the utility level to the basin level, and also it's not just how we manage it, but it's also how it comes in. You can have a giant snow pack that melts slowly over time and comes in gradually into the lake system and flows out through the valleys, or you can have it come all in a rush. And depending on that within year timing of the water can make a really big difference. But it's this type of fluctuation that really drove the creation of the water management program, because it was recognized following the 2003 fires that we have a lot of issues with drought, and we have issues with flood, and we need to work together as all the communities in the Okanagan to respond to this extremely fluctuating water regime that we have. So following the fires of 2003, the Water Board worked with the regional districts to establish this new water management program. And the first thing that they instituted were these water conservation and quality improvement grants. That's why I have it as the first slide. When I was applying for this job in 2006, that was the main part of the job application, was looking for someone to run this grant program, which has been going since that time. I think this is our 16th year of providing grants out to local governments. And this is a photo of a grant that we gave in this last fiscal year to the city of Kelowna, I believe, to establish this garden, this interpretive garden near the Laurel Packing House downtown, which had a big emphasis on native plantings, and also had some interpretive things like this flume to help people understand how water was managed in the valley. So we have, as I said earlier, we have $350,000 program right now going out every year. The next intake will be opening probably in November or December, and the deadline is usually for applications is usually in February. And it's always really great projects that come up. The next slide I have here is about environmental flows and hydrology modeling, because this is another thing that has been really consistent need and issue that we've been dealing with throughout the whole period of record of the water management program, is really trying to understand how much water is in the streams and how it is changing over time. We had the water supply and demand project, who was just getting going in 2006 at the same time as the water management program was established. And that was something that the water board became involved with a whole range of different senior government ministries and other experts coming together to really try to understand the water balance in the valley. You know, the particularly at that time is focused on drought and the demand for water, but also looking at the different extremes. And it says something that we are continuing to work on this and refine this over time. We had a big hydrology modeling effort that concluded last summer, and this environmental flows work has been continuing for quite some time. Probably the most consequential new thing that happened last year was the development of a new service by the board to institute to increase the network of hydrometric monitoring stations. So back in the 1980s, 70s and 80s, we had 150 hydrometric monitoring stations. We were very well served. We had a terrific data set for better understanding what was happening with water flows. And then over time, because of different government priorities, the number of stations was cut until we only had 25 stations left. And it was not adequate to really understand what was happening, to do the modeling that we needed to incorporate climate change and long-term planning. And we've been trying over the years to help, talk, negotiate. How do you get senior government to install stations? And then last year, the board approved a plan to really self-fund a number of stations and try and get up to at least a minimum of 50 stations. So it's a great new program, and it's already, we were hearing earlier today in our board meeting, how impactful having data on how much water is in the streams, how impactful that was for managing this year's drought. It was impactful for understanding the supply in specific streams, and it was impactful for managing the streams for fish, and understanding when people were pumping too much at different times of the day. It's just incredibly invaluable to understand that. It's also been really important for just drought planning overall. If we understand better how much water is coming down the streams, it's much easier for the water utility managers to respond to drought and to plan around drought. We continued our agricultural water outreach program and worked with these different utilities in getting the messages out to their agricultural water users. So we have consistent messaging across the whole valley. We had many different water utilities participating in this, and many producers who were getting regular texts and emails to explain to them what was happening with their water. On the other side of the spectrum, we continued to work on collaborative flood mapping. So this, the collaborative flood maps came out, I think it was at the end of the fiscal year that ended in March 2020, but this work continued. We've done a lot more to enrich these flood maps. They're available on our website. People are starting to incorporate them. The Regional District of Central Okanagan began working on the third stage of their flood management plan, looking at mitigation options. So we were involved in that. And everything is just building around this very rich set of maps so that we can help communities plan and prepare for future floods. So that's the wet end of the spectrum. Another thing that's very important in terms of managing both droughts and floods is having a better green infrastructure set up. So wetlands, you could say, are a way to help the landscape soak up water, store water, keep wildlife healthy. And we've been working over a number of years to come together with local groups, local communities, and really help protect and restore the wetlands that we have, so that then the wetlands can give back to all the communities, giving back by being a way to ameliorate floods, to shave the peaks off of floods, because the water slows down as it runs through them. They're a way for the water to soak down into the water table and be available to use in groundwater, or to return from groundwater into the streams and keep the streams cold. So wetlands are really an important part of our infrastructure, if you will, although they're natural systems. And this year we worked with a professor at UBC Okanagan, mapping and identifying where those wetlands would be. A lot of the work that we're doing has to do with this planning guides database. We are taking the information that we're gathering, whether it's information on protecting wetlands, source protection, other bylaws that communities can use, and we're building out this planning guides database in partnership with Civic Info BC. We now have 130 resources up there, and we're continually adding more, including this source protection toolkit, which is almost completed. And it was originally started as a source protection toolkit for the Okanagan. And then as we were developing it, we realized that it's really applicable to all of British Columbia. So we've sort of rebranded it as a source protection toolkit for British Columbia with Okanagan examples. And it's really getting a lot of positive feedback from different people. The water education guides have been a long time in the making. This is resources that go out to the school communities, the K through 12 teachers, so that they can have curriculum guides to help build out their classes on water. So we have kind of an overall first guide about our relationship with water with some kind of basic exercises. We have a guide on Okanagan watershed and climate. And then we have a guide on building outdoor learning spaces. So this was done in consultation with some Silks elders, but also with many other educators, water educators throughout the valley. And we're currently working with the Okanagan Nation to help develop a guide that is specifically from the Silks perspective, so that teachers can build their curriculum with a much richer understanding about the Silks perspective on water. That has been a very, very highly appreciated set of work from the teachers. We're getting a lot of really good feedback from the teachers on that. Make Water Work is our public outreach campaign to get people to conserve water. We're going to be announcing our 2021 Make Water Work Community Champion in just a few minutes, but this is really to raise awareness among the public about how to garden in a way that does not use as much water, make it more appropriate for our semi-arid landscapes. And normally it is a program that goes out into the community. We're at farmers markets, we're at festivals, we're talking to people, we're meeting people in their gardens, we're holding classes, we're working with the Xeriscape Association. But this last year, of course, we had to draw that all back in and go with a digital campaign. So this was, you know, it was quite challenging, but we had some great participation. Both the 2020 summer and the 2021 summer, with a lot of the mayors getting involved and encouraging their communities to conserve water. The Don't Move a Muscle campaign was similar. We were trying to normally what is a very public outreach intensive work, again, also had to go digital, but we still succeeded in getting out there and talking to boaters and getting some of our materials in front of people, radio ads, social media ads, and some socially distanced contacts at the boat launches, working with our partners with the Okanagan and Milfoil Invasive Species Society. So that was still successful, and we continued our push toward our elected officials to get them to continue with the boat inspections as well. The final little reflection from last year was just talking about our aqua hacking challenge. We had our first BC focused aqua hacking challenge last year, and this year we are having the second, probably the final aqua hacking challenge, co-hosted by the Water Board and what's now called Aqua Action, a family foundation out of Montreal. But the focus of aqua hacking is to get young entrepreneurs excited about water and finding technological solutions to address current water issues. So we were happy to work with UBC Okanagan and all the different BC universities to recruit student teams and put them through this program to get them excited about being water entrepreneurs. So now I was really appreciated that Chair McCourtoff said that she likes the looking forward section, and I like to prepare those looking forward sections. So this annual report that I'm talking about today, this was the year that ended March 31st, 2021, and so right now we're in the next fiscal year and we are looking forward. We're thinking about, we're working on a lot of different projects. Right now this year we have two very large projects going on having to do with water science. We got some large federal grants. One is to do flood risk mapping for the whole area where we did our main stem flood maps, where the flooding happened in 2017. So gathering together all kinds of information about environmental values, building the actual values of the buildings that are in the floodplain, infrastructure, environmental values, cultural values, things that are at risk from flooding. So we're building that into some new databases, and then it will eventually become a new layer of our flood maps, and will help a lot with planning, trying to understand what needs to be protected from floods. And the other project that we have going on that's large like that is, it's called topobathymetric mapping. So what we're doing is we're looking at the near shore of the lakes. If you go underneath the water, so it's the topography of the area of the lakes that's under the water. And the understanding the bathymetry of the lakes helps us better able to predict where the waves are going to be largest. We can start modeling the waves and the wave impacts. We can also look at things like fish habitat, infrastructure planning, understanding marine obstacles, or obstacles within the lakes. So all of these things will take these topographic maps that we created for areas, and we'll be able to extend them down under the water. So it's quite an exciting project. We also have this year, we're completing this source protection toolkit. We're working more on this silks Indigenous water education guides. We are planning the Osoyoos Lake Water Science Forum for 2022. There's just a tremendous amount of things going on, and we're grateful and excited to have so many partners that are working with us on all of these topics. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. And I think I'll stop screen sharing so I can see everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Anna, for giving us, we've got the annual report, but hearing you explain various things and put it in perspective is always very helpful. So thank you very much to Anna and our team for putting this together for us, because it's an amazing amount of work. So are there any questions or comments that anybody would like to ask of Anna, or something that you'd like to point out that in the annual report, or something about the board? Well, it looks like you've done a great job, Anna. So please interrupt if there is something that you want to have clarified. You can send an email to Anna or any of the members of the board if you think of something after the fact. Okay, looks like it was explained in detail. So thank you very much. The next thing that that we have is the announcement of the Make Water Work 2021 Champion Community, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Jackson. Corey, we can't hear you.
Oh dear.
Oh dear is right. She gonna phone in? Okay.
Mhm.
She's gonna
She's
refresh.
Yes.
Okay, so this is very exciting. So we will wait for.
Tension is mounting.
Well, I don't see Chris Pieper on here, so it can't be Armstrong again. Although maybe it is, and he's just going to pop up.
There we go.
Okay, can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I made sure not to log off, so I see that I'm sitting here as Nelson Jetel again. So James, maybe
That's
I'll
okay.
let you.
Oh, there you go. You're now Corrine.
All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's been an interesting last 18 or so months, as we've some of us are still working from home off and on. Anyway, thanks, Anna. As most of you know, Make Water Work is a valley-wide outdoor water conservation initiative of the OBWB's Okanagan Waterways program. And it began in 2011 and is delivered in partnership with local governments and utilities throughout the valley, from Armstrong to Sears. And welcome to so many of our partners that are on the call today. Each year, the campaign launches in the spring and runs until early fall, during the time of year when the strain on our water resources is greatest. The purpose of Make Water Work is to tackle the second largest use of all of our water in the valley, which is residential outdoor use in the summer. In 2014, 8 years ago, we began crowning one community our Make Water Work Community Champion. And it's intended to be fun, but it's also a challenge to engage mayors and their communities in what is a serious issue. And this year, with record-breaking temperatures, the heat wave or heat dome, earlier than normal start to the wildfire season, the ongoing drought and its impact on farmers trying to maintain crops, and fish struggling to make it to their home creeks to spawn due to low water levels and warm water temperatures. If there was ever a year to conserve, well, this was it. Our overall pledge numbers are down from last year. The city of Armstrong, who has won the champion title 4 times, was on evacuation alert this summer with the White Rock Lake fire, and pledges were far from last year's. That said, we know that residents in that community understand the importance of water conservation. And water utility partners from around the valley have reported a challenging summer, encouraging conservation earlier than normal when the heat hit us sooner than we normally would have had it. And at the same time, some are reporting seeing more golden lawns where residents chose to let their lawns go dormant and choosing to focus on watering what was more important, a food garden or a water-wise pollinator garden. And they've seen people replace lawn with more water-wise plant material. But at the same time, although there have been the challenges, we did see a huge spike in pledge numbers with 2 communities in particular. And I want to congratulate Summerland for pulling in the greatest number of pledges this year. I know Mayor Tony Boot and her council and staff worked very hard to promote water conservation this summer. And that said, we determine our Make Water Work Community Champion, however, based on pledges collected per capita. And so this year, our Make Water Work Champion community, based on pledges collected per capita, is the District of Peachland. So this is Peachland's 3rd win after taking the title in 2016 and 2019. So Cindy, congratulations to you and your community. We will be getting your certificate and other lovely Make Water Work goodies out to you soon. And I wanted to just let you know, I received a few words this morning from your friend and fiercest rival, the City of Armstrong's Mayor, Chris Pieper, and he asked me to share this with you. So,
Okay.
and then we'll hand it over to you. So I would like to congratulate Cindy and the community of Peachland for winning the Make Water Work Challenge this year. I know how much fun it is to win and unfortunately lose as well. You have also done this in the past. I will have some Armstrong cheese and possibly some wine to go with it next time I see you.
Perfect.
I won't make any excuses. However, between COVID-19, which we all have worked at the past 18 months, we were the evacuation center for a lot of fire evacuees that had animals. We had everything in the fairgrounds this year except a fair. This was truly a humbling experience. I'm looking forward to a normal 22 and winning the Make Water Work Challenge for the 5th time next year. Congrats, Chris. And with that, Cindy, I'd ask if you would like to say a few words in your, in terms of your win.
No, well, thank you, Corrine. And Mayor Pieper, I know you were faced with a lot of challenges, and he actually sent me a note that was kind of a little bit of a snide challenge early on. So he's the one that set the fire under me to get going on this. A fire, that's not a good term. Let me, bad choice of words, but you know what I'm saying. And I'll be looking forward to that wine and cheese, or that wine and cheese specialty cheese that Armstrong has. And I just wanted to say it's fantastic to receive this recognition to reclaim the Make Water Work Community Championship. And thank you to the Okanagan Basin Water Board and everyone who works on this campaign, in particular the Energizer Bunny, Corrine Jackson, who's got put so much energy into this water-wise competition of Make Water Work. Thank you so much for that. It's really important. Also, Habit Creative, did I say that right? They ran the campaign. And a special thank you, of course, to all Peachland residents who stepped up and made the pledge recognizing the need for water conservation and just even the small things you can do, some of which you mentioned, Corrine, can collectively make a huge difference. So thank you to all Peachland residents. A special shout out to Mayor Boot of Summerland. I see she's not here today, like you say, but they only had a few more, but it was based on per capita, but they did amazing. So a shout out to Summerland residents. And it's wonderful to be the community champion, but more importantly, it's important to recognize everyone who took the pledge, no matter where you live. It demonstrates the growing recognition of the importance of water conservation, because at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and it's about getting the message out there. This year's extreme drought was a stark illustration of how important our water supply is, how easily we can find ourselves in a drought situation, and then facing the impacts, severe impacts like wildfires. So if our behavior gets passed down to future generations and it becomes second nature to them to conserve water, that's the ultimate goal, because it's the future that's important here. So once again, thank you so much. I can't wait to put this, did you say the third? I think it's the third plaque up on the wall. I really appreciate everybody that pledged. Thank you so much. This is a really good thing, and let's keep it going. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. I would also like to remind people that although the Make Water Work Challenge is done for 2021, we are still in a drought, and we are still hearing reports of farmers struggling to maintain their food crops and fish struggling. So please continue to make water work better in your landscapes, in your yards, and visit makewaterwork.ca for tips on how to do that. And Sue, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Corrine, for doing this. You're quite right. You are the Energizer Bunny, getting this all going. And congratulations to Peachland. As I recall, the Peachland mayor suggested that she would come down and give me a hand at the farmers market some time back. And so I'm still waiting for that.
Blame it on COVID, Sue. Blame it on COVID. I'll be there next year.
I totally do. And I appreciate that. I think this is a great program. Obviously, even if we don't win, all of the other communities have this in the back of their mind. They're thinking about how we can, make water work more sensibly outside. And so this is great, because even if, we forget about it for a while because we have a fire or something, it's there in the back of our minds. And my other thing I always have to throw in at this time is I think we need to make water work inside the house too. And so I will once again say 3-minute showers are what we need. However, I said that on CBC one time and my sister had a fit and told me that that was inappropriate to say. And I said, no, it isn't, I already did. Anyway, thank you to all of you for taking part in this. I loved the videos that the mayors did. They were so cool. And I saw Director Baker on one quite recently. So I think it's been a really fun way to engage people and make people realize that we all share this water and we have to do what we can to make water work. Absolutely, for sure. So anybody have any questions or comments about the Make Water Work Challenge? Okay, well, it looks like we're sort of at the end of our program today. I have some thank yous. I want to thank the Okanagan Basin Water Board members. They are hardworking, enthusiastic, knowledgeable, passionate about protecting our shared waters. So thank you to all the board members who continue to meet monthly, get involved with things, learn about all the aspects of water in the Okanagan. You're a great bunch, and I'm honored to be able to work with you. I also want to thank our staff. We have absolutely the best staff. And when we looked at the, where is it that, progress, tracking progress toward the goals of 2020, it's pretty amazing what our staff accomplishes in a year. Sometimes we think they're taking time off sitting at their homes on their computers, but you know what? They work hard. So I would just like to thank our executive director, Anna Warwick Sears, for all the work that she does. James Litley, who coordinates the Milfoil program and all of our, our grants and things like that. He does an amazing job. Nelson Jatel, who looks after the Water Stewardship Council. I was on that meeting yesterday for the first half anyway, and what an amazing group of experts you have helping you, Nelson, in dealing with all of the necessary technical work that goes on. It's phenomenal. Corrine Jackson, of course, our Energizer Bunny, who coordinates all of the special projects, the Make Water Work and the Don't Move a Muscle particularly, and also the program that's being used in the schools. I know that she was a big part of that, and I think that is so important. Carolina Restropo looks after special projects like the Aqua hawking and the Water Science Forum for next year. So I'm hoping that you will all join us in Osoyoos next April, the 28th to the 30th, because it will be a very interesting program, I know. And Kelly Garcia, who coordinates all kinds of things. Who knows what it is now, but this summer she was working with all of the drought people and trying to coordinate that and coming up with all kinds of reports that help our staff. So thank you to all of our staff. You do an amazing job.
I have a question. So
yes, go ahead, Director Baker.
How, because of COVID and the general public isn't sort of involved in this, how widely is the annual report distributed now, or where does it go, or does that make any difference whether the public has their hands on it at this time or not?
Could I ask Dr. Sears to answer that one, please?
We are making it available digitally on our website and sending it out on our, our email contact list. That link for the digital copy. We're also printing a few hard copies, which will be sent to.
So we can announce it at our council meetings or whatever, that it's available on the web, the Okanagan Basin Water. Okay, good, thank you.
And thank you for that question, because I think it's really important for us to have some hard copies as well. And I do appreciate the fact that I think Anna said that there were going to be some that were printed, and I'm certainly hoping that board members will have a copy. And if you have somebody who you think would like a copy, like I would say our MLA, Rolly Russell, who is very interested in this, I would certainly like to have him have a copy. There may be other people too. So please let our staff know if you think there's someone who needs a hard copy of it as well as online. Okay.
Certainly our MLA and our MP, whoever that might be.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely.
We can vote tomorrow, can't we?
You can vote anytime.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
I was sorry,
Sure.
Sue. I was just going to mention that in addition to sending out copies to MLAs, MPs, etc., we will also be putting a news release out in a short while here, and we will have a link to that, and we will be sharing that on social media as well. So making sure that the public also is aware of the annual report now being available.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay, so to sum up, we collectively, all of us, will continue to work together, plan for the future, but adjust our plans as necessary and collaborate with local partners and provincial and federal agencies to overcome the shifting tides and waves that try to adjust our course. So that goes with our Waves of Change annual report. So that is the conclusion of our AGM today. Thank you all for participating and being involved and paying attention to this. And I do believe I need to have a motion to adjourn. Is that right, Ms. Jackson?
Move.
Thank you. Director Baker, Director Bazran, all in favor. Thanks,
And
everybody.
thank you, Mayor Sue, for
Yes.
all the work you do to keep this all together, and of course, all the staff as well. We accomplishing a lot, and there's more, and I'm sure pleased to see the Indigenous on the board in a voting capacity as we, and hopefully that happens in all the areas where we are dealing with Crown lands, and that's critical. So anyway, thanks all.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Catch you next time, whenever that might be, when we can see you.
In a
I'm
month,
gone.
April the 6th, or October 6th, 5th.